What's going on, guys? My name is Arrow, and in today's video, I'm going to be telling you 9 things that I wish that I knew before I started Last Epoch. Let's go. I am not a Last Epoch veteran, but I am a Path of Exile veteran who has come over and tried to play some Last Epoch before the 1.0 launch. I've learned a lot of things in the last couple of weeks, and I want to share some of the most important things that I've learned with you if you are coming from another game and want to jump into Last Epoch. This game is a ton of fun. I'm super excited for the launch on Wednesday. So let's get in. Tip number 1. Respecing is so easy. In Last Epoch, you can respec 2 things. You can respec your skills, things that you have specialized in. You have these incredible skill trees, which are very, very complex. We'll get into these later. But if you want to respec these, you can click the respec button up here. You either remove 1 point at a time, or you can despecialize entirely and fully reset the node and turn it into a different skill, or just fully start over with the skill that you're on. The cool thing is it'll accelerate the amount of experience that you get, so you will level it up faster to kind of catch up to your other skills. It's a very, very forgiving system. Then you can talk to the brain lady. You come down here and you can respec your masteries. I am a rogue that is a blade dancer. If I want to come in here and I want to change things, because I'm talking to this lady, I can just click on the node that I want. It'll cost me a little bit of gold, but then I can spec into something else. You cannot change your masteries. However, you can change what is going on within them, and it makes it really, really convenient and not punishing to change your character around if you don't like something that you've done. Number 2, crafting is amazing and it is available early. Unlike in other ARPGs, crafting is encouraged at the beginning of the game. You get access to many of the very complex mechanics of crafting right away. You can do it anywhere in the world. You don't actually have to go click on the forge, and you can start crafting gear. It is not punishing. Use your materials and upgrade your gear and make your character stronger as you blast through the campaign. So in order to craft, you press your crafting hotkey, whatever yours is set to. Mine is V. I've messed around with my hotkey, so don't worry about mine specifically. And it brings up the forge. You can take any item that you have, you can pop it in here, and it'll give you some opportunity to change the item, to add mods, to remove mods. There's several systems that are important to know early. That is the inventory system here. You can click this button and you can add runes, you can add shards, and you can add glyphs. You can look at all the different things that you have. So for this chest, let's say I want to add another suffix to it. This item by default has 2 prefixes and 1 suffix. So there's an open suffix here. So I can add something. Let's say I want to make this have more cold resistance. So it'll add my cold resistant shard. These shards are found in the world from killing monsters. You can also shatter items with runes of shattering, but then you can add a glyph to it. These glyphs are very interesting. The glyph of hope makes it so you have a chance to not consume any forging potential. Forging potential is how much total crafting you can do on an item. It is somewhat random. The amount that you start with is random, and then the amount that each one costs is semi-random as well. So this is going to cost 1 to 18 potential. I have 31 total. The glyph of hope gives us a chance to not use that potential. So let's add the affix. So down here in the crafting outcome, this is a super useful box. It tells you exactly what you got. You got 8 additional cold and it costs us 13 potential. So not great, but not horrible. Now we can then upgrade this again. We could come over here and upgrade dodge if we wanted to. So let's do that instead. 1 to 24 potential. So this is very expensive, but we're going to use another glyph of hope. And we only cost 1 potential and we got 27 additional dodge rating. So I look at this item, how is this good for me? It's got a physical pen with shadow daggers, which is something that I use, but I don't use the mana. So if we want to get rid of this mana roll, you can actually come in here and use a glyph of chaos. Glyph of chaos will require that you have the shard for whatever the affix is. In this case, mana. I have a mana shard. So with the glyph of chaos in here, I can click upgrade and re-roll. It cost me 9 potential, but I got damage per arrow with multi-shot. Now, I don't use that, so unfortunately that is it's a dead mod for me, and I don't have any of these shards to be able to re-roll it. But if I were to get something good, we'd keep it, throw the armor on, and we're very happy and good to go. Something very important to remember about crafting: these glyphs stay in here. So if you put a glyph of chaos in, remember to clear it afterwards so you don't actually accidentally re-roll a mod on one of your very important gear pieces. Number 3, resistances are very forgiving. It is not like other ARPGs, namely Path of Exile, where missing resistance is going to effectively mean that you are taking a magnitude more of damage. If you are missing 1% resistance, you are just going to take a small amount more damage compared to a multiplicative value like you do in Path of Exile. So you'll see in here, these are the different resistances that you have. You have fire, lightning, and cold, and then you have physical, poison, necrotic, and void. There are a bunch of other defenses that you have. Armor is very important in this game, and it also works against elemental resistance, and it also works against elemental damage and necrotic damage, but only at 70% effectiveness. So getting a bunch of armor is very, very strong. So I have overcapped fire res here, but nothing else is capped, and I'm pretty easily taking on some endgame content that I'm very underleveled for. So you don't need to have all of these. Now, 7%, not very good, but you get into the 60s and things are gonna feel very, very safe. Tip number 4, stash tabs are purchasable with in-game currency. So when you click on your stash, it'll bring up this section here. These tabs can be purchased. Each time you purchase a tab, the cost will go up. I believe it was 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 for your first 3 tabs. It goes up, I believe, exponentially at some point, so you can end up spending hundreds of thousands of gold on a stash tab. However, early on, grab a few stash tabs. Gold is very easy to come by, and you're gonna wanna save any exalted items that you find. Exalted items are purple, and that means they have one modifier on them that is rolled higher than you could find by default or craft. So Slayer's Winged Blade of Glory has 59 health on kill. That is a tier 6 mod. Tier 6 is the highest possible mod, but tier 5 is as high as you can get by crafting. So this mod is incredibly powerful, and you need it in the end game in order to create legendary items. Legendary items look like this. The Stormhide Paws usually come with all of these white affixes that you see here, and the +1 strength is actually an additional mod that was given by an exalted item. This is a little bit more complicated than I want to get into now, but holding on to these purple items is going to allow you to craft some cool endgame gear once you get legendary potential uniques that you want to put on your build. Number 5, skill trees are not intimidating. When you first open them up, they look like they're a lot, but they all do very, very specific things that cause your character's skills to behave in a certain way. So in this character, I went in entirely blind on this build, and I just kind of made the build as I went. So I ended up specializing in Umbral Blades as my main damage source. Now, there's a few things that you can do with this. I went towards Shadow Daggers, which make it so your blades kind of do damage in an AoE on the ground. And if you just go through and look at the outside, you can see the possibilities. Like this trail over here, it's going to make it so your daggers do bleed. If you want to go this direction, it's going to give you more and more blades. If you go in this direction, it's going to make it so your blades are cold. They're not as intimidating as they look. However, it is very important that you understand what your skill is doing, because all of your skills work together, which leads me to my next point. All of your skills heavily impact each other. So for example, the way that I've built my shurikens is that they create a AoE of blades around me that give me additional armor. I don't actually get much damage out of these, but what they're doing is they're basically just creating this shield around me that spins some blades and gives me armor. And I also specialized in shift, which is my movement skill. When I allocate sleight of hand, that makes it so I throw shurikens at enemies when shifting. Well, in this case, because I don't actually throw them, it just casts the skill, and I now have the blades around me when I use my skill. So as you see here, I have my shurikens here, but when I press my movement skill, it's going to cast them around me, so they spin and they create a shield for me, and every time I cast it, I get them back again. In my opinion, these interactions is what makes Last Epoch such an intriguing and interesting game, because there are so many items and skills and skill interactions that you can make a seemingly endless number of builds, which I'm very excited to dive into. Number 7, all the information that you could possibly need as a new player is built into the game. If you want to know how your fire resistance is helping you, you just hover over fire res in the game, and it explains exactly how it works. You want to look at what health does, you want to look at what spell damage does, block effectiveness, how any of this stuff works. You hover over it over in your character panel, and it explains all of it. Further, every item that you look at has the opportunity for you to hold Alt by default, and it will show you what the range is of all of the things that you have on your gear. So cold res, 8 to 14% cold res. Then if you hold Control as well, it then explains what all those things do. So cold resistance reduces cold damage you take. So for example, on my Prism Wrap's chest, we hold Alt to see the different stats here, and then you hold Control Alt and it shows you something like critical chance. Increases your crit chance. Your base crit is 5%, so 100% crit chance would give you 10% crit chance if there are no other modifiers. That level of detail is really, really useful, and as a new player, you don't have to go Google anything. You can look right in the game and see what every single thing does for your character. Number 8. Your loot filter is so important, and it is not difficult to make your own. Unlike in Path of Exile, loot filters here are incredibly easy to understand, easy to make, and you can design them in-game quickly and effectively. So I believe the default hotkey is Shift F. That will bring up your loot filter. I have a very, very basic loot filter that I made myself. You can ignore this one, I'm not using that. Basically what I started with is a rule that you create that hides all normal magic and rare items, so it'll show all uniques, but it's going to hide all of these items. And this rule being on the bottom means it is the least kind of important rule. It says here, rules positioned higher in the list overrule the ones below them. So if you can hide all items, but then you can say, show me items that are magic and have health on them. And that rule will override this one and it'll show them. It allows making a loot filter that is specifically tailored to your build incredibly easy. You look for the mods that you want and you move on. So I will give you a quick example of adding a rule. Let's say that I'm playing a rogue and I want to look at rogue specific items. So any item that requires a rogue, you can just go ahead and add that and all rogue specific items will get shown. Even more importantly, you can recolor it, you can emphasize it, which makes it a little bit bigger. And then you can select a color, and let's say you want to make it like a pinkish purple color here. Confirm. Now all rogue specific items will be recolored as this purple color. It's incredibly easy. I highly recommend getting in game, messing around with the filter and making one for yourself. Now there are lots of loot filters out there. There's a great guide at Maxroll that I'm going to link in the description that explains way more in depth than I'm showing you here how to make it, but definitely useful. Check that out if you want to make your own filter. The last thing I'll say is that going into this game with guides is very useful, but you really can play this game completely blind. It explains a lot of things to you, and I highly recommend not making this experience entirely on rails. In this way, you'll learn a lot more about the game, and I think you're gonna have a lot more fun. But that said, there are guides if you wanna have a baseline of what you wanna work on. There's tons of great stuff over at Maxroll. We have a lot of great creators over there. I'm probably going to be loosely basing a build off of a guide that we have at Maxroll, and then kind of exploring and maybe working on the new Falconer class. I'm super excited for the launch. I hope to see all you guys there. I will be live each and every day on twitch.tv/AER0__. Come check us out. Come say hello. It's going to be a great time. If you want to support me, you can like this video, comment down below, and subscribe to the channel. I appreciate each and every single one of you. I look forward to seeing you all over at the Twitch. And with that said, take care.